recap of California football playoffs and a projection on the bowl games coming up in Northern California. Welcome into the MaxWire. I am Megan Pache. We'll be joined shortly by Mitch Stevens, and we've got a lot to cover on the show today, so let's get started. We begin with the North Coast section, the Division 5 bracket just full of surprises, and Salesian, who came in at the number 5 seed, rolled on to victory with upset after upset, sealing the Division 5 section title with a 19-13 win over number 2 seed Valley Christian to finish at 8-5. Okay, Division 4 number 5 seed St. Mary's upsets number 1 seed San Marin 35-29 in the semifinals and will take on number 2 Fortuna in the section championship. Fortuna snuck past Del Norte 21-20 and are now 10-2. St. Mary's is 9-4 going into the Division 4 championship, which will be played this Saturday. In the semifinals of the Division 3 bracket, number 1 Marin Catholic rolls past Annalee 48-20, and number 2 Campolindo falls to number 3 El Cerrito 49-34. A 12-0 Marin Catholic and an 11-2 El Cerrito will play for the section championship this Friday. And now let's bring in Mitch Stevens. We're gonna hear from you now. What can you tell us about these two teams?
These, in my mind, these are the two best D3 teams in the entire state. So the winners should move on. This is a great matchup of Marin Catholics. They just have this impeccable system that's orchestrated by Oregon-bound quarterback Morgan Mahalik, who we've talked about in the past, against El Cerrito's just sheer athleticism. They have 3 kids in the top 20 recruits in the state, headed by the UCLA commit Darius Pickett. It's also a rematch of probably the best game from last season in the Bay Area, in my opinion, a 31-28 Marin Catholic win, and that was also in the NCS title game. So from a sheer matchup perspective, I really think this is the best of the bunch this weekend.
Okay, let's talk Division 2 now. Number 1 seed Casa Grande edges out number 4 Montgomery 42-13 in the semifinals. A 13-0 Casa will take on an 11-2 Miramonte, who upset number 2 Clayton Valley Charter in the semifinals. Casa Grande and Miramonte playing for the section title. We go back to Mitch Stevens now for your projections. What do you got?
Yeah, I love this matchup too, for a number of reasons. Casa Grande has never won an NCS title, and a victory would assuredly vault them into the regional game, unquestioned. They're the number 1 ranked Division 2 team. B, these two programs have never faced each other, so that's always fun. And C, it's a great matchup of 2 of the Bay Area's best and most productive quarterbacks, in Casa Grande's Juwan Lawson, who's 3,041 total yards, 35 touchdowns, and Miramonte's Drew Anderson. He's passed for over 3,600 yards, 42 touchdowns. You know, if Miramonte wins, it's not a shoo-in that they'll be selected to the regional game because there's Enterprise and Manteca and St. Francis are currently ranked ahead of them, but this will give them definitely a shot.
Definitely a good game going in there. Now we're going to move on to Division 1 bracket. Number 1 seed De La Salle improves to 12-0 with a 57-27 win over number 4 Deer Valley. The Spartans will take on number 3 seed California for the section title. California upset number 2 Pittsburgh in the semis 31-17 and is 11-2 going into Saturday's section championship game. Okay, Mitch, for this one, either team's a shoe-in for the bowl game here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And we've had this discussion before, Megan. Nobody in their right mind is going to bet against De La Salle. They're ranked 5th nationally. They haven't lost a NorCal opponent since 1991, and they just beat California 55-0 a month ago. But one of these days, or one of these years, one of these decades, De La Salle is going to have a bad day, and so I think that gives it some intrigue, and an opponent is going to have to play perfect, and it would be somewhat poetic if it was California, which is coached by Eric Felici, who started De La Salle in the 1990s, but either way, the winner here will definitely advance to the regional open division game.
De La Salle with a lot to lose in that game. We're going to go ahead and we covered the NCS, and now we're going to move on to the Central Coast section brackets. Small schools, Division 4, number 7 seed Pacific Grove will face number 1 Sacred Heart Prep in the section championship this Saturday. Both teams are 11-1. D3 schools, number 1 St. Ignatius will face number 2 Aptos in the section championship this Friday. For the Division 2 championship, it will be number 2 Los Gatos against number 1 seed St. Francis. And both teams are 9-3 headed into Saturday's game. Mitch, we're going to take it back to you. What do you have on these two teams?
Yeah, first off, I think if St. Francis wins this game, especially decisively, I think it's earned the right to play in the regional game. There's a lot of competition in this division, but I think the Lancers' schedule is just beyond reproach. It has a win over the Northern California's number 4 team, Sarah, and it's 3 losses in the WCAL, which is, it has to be the toughest league in Northern California. It's come by a total of just 15 points. So the big question is, can St. Francis slow down Joey Wood, who has rushed for a ridiculous amount of yards in the playoffs, 526 yards and 10 touchdowns in just 2 games. And another great point of this game is just a matchup of 2 great first-year coaches, Los Gatos' Mark Crayell and Greg Calcagno of St. Francis, who have coached before, but this is their first year leading these programs. So that should be a really nice matchup.
In the Division 1 bracket, it's number 2 Milpitas against number 4 San Benito. These two will square off Friday at 7. And for the Central Coast Section Open Division this Friday, number 2 Sarah, who you just mentioned, is now 10-2. They will take on number 5 seed Archbishop Mitty, who is 11-1. Sarah topped Bellarmine 28-17 in the semis, while Mitty took Valley Christian 37-7 to advance to the section championship. And of these 9 section football championships, Mitch, I gotta say that this one's the most intriguing. What do you have on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Megan. It's basically because of all the intrigue largely around the absolute dogfight that is that league, the WCAL. And these 2 teams, they share the title for the WCAL title, with Sarah winning the head-to-head matchup 31-7 just 3 weeks ago. So there's some intrigue there because Mitty will obviously have a score to settle. But that said, the winner will almost assuredly face the Sac Joaquin Section D1 title game winner in the D1 regional matchup. So that's at stake. And, both teams are looking for the first open title and a shot at a bowl game. And both teams just have a variety of weapons. I mean, there's just a lot of playmakers, lots of, and both defenses, ball hawking. They're very similar in that regard. Sarah has some key injuries at this time, but has overcome them all year long. It should just be a great, great game.
That does sound like a great game. Thanks so much, Mitch. Always a pleasure to have you on. And folks, get out to a game this weekend. This is Bay Area football at its best. And that's going to conclude our regular fall programming for the Bay Area. And we thank you so much for joining. My name is Megan Pichet. This has been the MaxWire on MaxPreps.com.